All right, we've got Father's Day from 2011. This is, I mean, how else are you going to celebrate Father's Day than by a Father's Day themed film? And what better Father's Day themed film than Father's Day, right? So, yeah, so that's where I went with. Anyway, spoiler alert, you know the drill, talking about the movie, going to be giving away the ending, so you can skip ahead to the annotation part where it says, you know, rating and thoughts and whatever, and that should theoretically be spoiler free. So yeah, skip ahead to that if you don't want to, if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to ruin it. Anyway, here we go, in the wise words of Super Mario. So start off the film with a lovely scene of a person being dismembered and eaten, and the killer has the severed head and is getting jollies with it, let's just say. So that's a really nice cold opening there. Then we got a man entering the building, and the killer jumps out the window and runs away, and the man chases him down in the car and ends up hitting him with the car and shooting him in the head after saying Happy Father's Day, and then roll the intro credits. So this film is stylized as like, if you remember like Superstation in like the 90s or the 80s, they had a Superstation which you could subscribe to for like a decent amount of money, and they would show movies essentially. It was like a scheduled movie channel, and you get to see all the new releases, so you could just subscribe to this and then look at your TV guide and find what time the movie you want to see is on, and you can skip going to Blockbuster that way. So these were pretty popular back in those days. I remember a buddy of mine had it. I never had it. We just did Blockbuster because, you know, we're cool. Yeah. Anyway, so it's stylized like that. So you have like even at the beginning of the movie, they have an intro to that, and the whole film is stylized as a movie from that generation, or maybe like the 70s or something like that. Something very retro feeling. They do this film. They even do it on old film, and this, like, the film quality and sound quality sounds like one of those older movies. So that's fun. They even have like fake commercial breaks and stuff and previews to like other movies that are coming on that Superstation after you finish watching Father's Day, like coming up next. So that's fun. Those are interspersed between the movie. Anyway, after the opening credits go, we cut to this character in jail being questioned by this officer by the name of Stiegel. So he is basically assumed to have killed his own father. And then we recount the story as he's telling it to the officer. So essentially he had a fight with his father and went off to do his thing. So this character goes by the name of Twink. That's like a self-given name in this film. His real name is Andrew. So when I say the word Twink, I do not mean it in an offensive way whatsoever. That's literally what the character's name is going by throughout the film. So I apologize if that offends anyone, but that's what I'll be referring to him as, because that's what he's referred to in the film as. Anyway, get that out of the way. So he is essentially a male, I guess, prostitute, sort of, like a gay male prostitute. So they cut to him finding a client and beginning to work, for lack of a better term. But as he's doing so, he's trying to steal this guy's wallet, and the guy catches on, and he's like, what the hell? And then his buddy comes. His buddy's name is Walnut for whatever reason. And Walnut comes and hits him with a pipe so that Twink doesn't get beaten to shit or whatever, and they run off. And he didn't end up taking the wallet, he forgot, so that's great. All that for nothing, essentially. Anyway, the cop is like, okay, well, let's get to the point. And so he says, okay. And then it cuts to a scene inside the house where you see Twink's father looking at a picture of his son. Like, they had a fight and everything, but I mean, it's his son, right? He cares enough about his son or whatever to, like, maybe they're going to try to make amends later. I don't know. Anyway, he's looking at the picture, and crack over the back of the head. Boom. So someone has snuck into his house. And then he is beaten and violated. I'll just leave it at that. You probably know what I'm referring to. And left basically whimpering and crying, essentially, as the culprit leaves. And you think, okay, I guess that's going to be it. No, culprit comes back, doses him in gasoline, and sets him on fire, and Just as Twink is coming home, he sees his father stumbling out of the house on fire, collapsing on the ground, burning to death. So that's lovely. Yeah. It's not a great way to come home. Anyway, so the officer assumes that he is the main culprit because the story sounds crazy or whatever, and he's, I guess, had trouble with the law before due to his profession, maybe. I don't really know. I can't remember the exact backstory as to why they suspect it's him, but these are the reasons I would assume they would be. So let's just go with that. Then we have a priest by the name of Father John. He's another character in the film who's talking to... did I miss something? I missed something, didn't I? Shoot. Well, whatever. Anyway, we'll just introduce Father John. So Father John is another character, one of the main characters in the film, and he is a priest, obviously, and his... I don't know anything about religion, so I apologize for whatever. The higher up priest, whatever his title would be, is blind and kind of in with an oxygen tube on his nose and everything, and he's not doing great. But essentially, he says something on the lines of it's the fuckman. So when I say fuckman, it's spelled Fuchman, but it's pronounced Fuckman. So yeah, good times. If I ever get monetized, this one will never be, because within the first 6 minutes I've said fuck, and I've talked about dismemberment and bodily defecation and stuff like that. Anyway, whatever. Moving along. So that's the characters introduced. They're like, okay, you need the blind priest is like, you got to go get Ahab. He's the only one who can deal with this. He trained him or something like that along those lines, and whatever. So we're eventually, when we meet Ahab, he's in a forested area, and Father John finds him, and he's just chilling in the forest, living his best life. He's tapping trees or whatever, saying he's making maple syrup, and Father John's kind of like, that's not a maple tree. And he's like, well, what the hell have I been making syrup out of? The dialogue is brilliant in this movie, just a heads up. I'm not going to do it justice at all. I'll give you the main story idea, but you really need to watch it just for the various dialogues in the film. The way it's done is brilliant. Anyway, he's like, you got to come back, blah, blah, blah. Fuckman's back. He's killing fathers and violating them. And, Father, I can't remember the name of the blind priest name, but blind priest dude says that you can help us to stop him. And he's like, yeah, I don't think so, buddy. And then he's like, okay, well, I guess if you don't want to. And he's like, actually, yeah, okay, I will. So, sure. Anyway, they come back. Meanwhile, Twink apparently knows Ahab's... Oh, yeah, Ahab's the lumberjack guy, by the way. He's not a lumberjack guy. He's a dude with an eye patch who happened to be in a forest. But whatever. Anyway, that's Ahab. He's our main protagonist guy. His sister is working at a strip club. After he talks to the blind guy, I think he tells her about the sister, and he's like, oh god, she's a stripper now? This isn't good. So he goes down to the building. Oh shit, okay, so Twink also knows the sister, whose name is Chelsea. So Chelsea's the stripper sister. Anyway, Twink, she apparently has been trying to stop this fuckman guy too, while Ahab's been off fighting himself in the forest or whatever it is. Anyway, so again, sorry, I'm all over the place here. But yeah, so they go to the strip club, which, fun fact, in the credits of the film, they say, if you're ever in Winnipeg, check out Teasers. So I guess that was filmed in Teasers. I don't know if I've ever been to Teasers, and if I have, it's been a long, long time, but that's kind of cool that they're doing a shout out to a Winnipeg strip club. Fun fact, it was filmed in a couple of Canadian cities. They have Kenora, Toronto, I think, Vancouver, Winnipeg. I swear there's a scene later that reminds me of one of our provincial parks, but I'll talk about that when we get to the scene. Anyway, that being said, where was I? Oh yeah, he goes to the strip club, and the matriarch or whatever, the head of the strip club, what do you call them? I don't know. The boss lady is apparently Ahab's ex, and there's a whole flirtation thing, and she's coming on to him, and he's not into it, and he's basically like, where's Chelsea? And she's like, she's about to go on. So I guess Ahab was under the impression that she's there against her will. No, she's 100% down with doing her job and being a stripper. So all the power to you, Chelsea. Good job. She does her little strip thing, her dance, pole dance, whatever it is. And they meet, and basically she gives him shit. She says, listen, you frigged off and left me here. I was raised in an orphanage, blah, 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 blah. And she's essentially basically tells him that she's taking it upon himself to stop this Fuckman guy. Chris Fuckman, that's his name. Maybe I should just call him Chris. No, I'm not going to. I've come this far. He will be Fuckman forever. So anyway, we got a guy named Twink. So I mean, I'm not gonna. If I've offended anyone, it's been a long time ago already. So, unintentional again. So we go on this adventure. They're like, okay, well, let's go. So basically, Twink is with them at this point too, because they intersected at some point as well. So we got Twink, we got Father John, we got Ahab. So they get together and they start talking about everything, and they're like, okay, we got a plan. Let's do this. Let's go get him tonight. And then one of the other ones is like, and where do we go? He's like, shit, good point. We didn't think this through. Again, highlighting some of the dialogue throughout the film, which really makes it amusing. Like, it's definitely a comedy more than anything. Just a very, like a, what do they call it? Splat stick, maybe? Is it splat stick? No, not quite. I don't know. It's fun. It's gory and humorous. Whatever. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so yeah. So it's at 1.2. He... Oh, geez. Man, there's like so much that happens in this movie. My brain is like discombobulating. That's a word. Whatever. We'll just skip to whatever part this is in the film. So anyway, this Fuckman guy, I think they had an encounter with Ahab and the other two at one point already in this or whatever, and he got away or whatever it is. Also, by the way, the guy at the beginning of the film that the person in the car hit, turns out that was Ahab that hit this guy, and Ahab was under the impression that this was Fuckman, but it turns out that he wasn't, and he was arrested for 10 years, and that's why Chelsea was having a shit fit. Like, you know, you were in jail for 10 years, you just killed some random guy. He thought it was the Fuckman guy. Anyway, whatever. Fuckman's back, so he needs to be stopped, right? Okay, anyway. He comes into the strip club, blows away the boss lady. There's another stripper who fights him with a chainsaw, so that's great. Like, you know, guess it's part of her act, maybe? I don't know. But she, like, goes at him with a chainsaw, but he ends up taking her down. Basically, chainsaw on the ground, running, and he pushes her head onto it. There you go. She's done. And then he turns, and the whole time, by the way, Chelsea's in the same room doing her toenails, listening to music in her, I guess it would be a Walkman back then, right? So that's fun. So she can't hear what's going on, even though there's a mirror there, but she's looking at her feet or whatever, doing her thing. No, it's not a Quentin Tarantino movie, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, he grabs her and takes her off, and at this point, I guess they get wind of what's going to happen there or something, but they're too late. They arrive, and all of the strippers and patrons are dead, and they enter the boss lady's room, and she's still alive, but barely, with blood coming out of her mouth on the ground, and she's like, I'll tell you what happened to Chelsea if you kiss me. He's like, oh, okay, I don't really want to. You're like, oh, blood. She's like, come on, you kiss me and I'll tell you what happened to your sister. And he's like, oh god, okay. And he like fake kisses her. She's like, you didn't even touch my lips. So it's just a whole thing. It's a whole scene. Anyway, he does kiss her, and she like coughs blood in his mouth, and it's disgusting. And he's even like, ew, ew, ew. Anyway, she tells him, and all she tells him is, yeah, he took her in a white truck. Wow, useful. Anyway, whatever. So they go out on the killing spree. They're gonna go find this guy. I don't know how they assume they know where he's going, but they do know where he's going because they have a journal that his sister had. And I don't know, since her sister was tracking him, she had been learning kind of about where he's been and has figured out that his like base of operations is an abandoned water park. So like a water slide place. So that's fun. So they, I guess, head on down to that. And lo and behold, behind them, coming up really quickly, is this white truck with Chelsea in the passenger seat and Fuckman driving the truck. Rams him from behind. There's this whole scene where Twink tries to climb out the window and get her out, pull her out of the car and pull him to the other one, and he's being dragged on the ground, and that doesn't work, so he gets back in the car, and Ahab does a little bit of car surfing. He's surfing on the hood, or bonnet if you're in the UK. And yeah, he's surfing on a car. I mean, what else do you want in a like 90s, 80s, 70s type movie? I don't know what it's supposed to be. I'm assuming 70s. Let's say that. So he's surfing on the car, jumps in the car, tries to get his sister out. Does not succeed, however. Falls off the car. And as he does, their main car is bumped slightly off the road and crashes, and it's totaled. So that's not good. There's even a scene where Twink's like, "Can we fix it?" And then it explodes in the background. And he's like, "Can we fix it?" Yeah, it's gonna be fine, buddy. Anyway, they get to this water slide park, and they go underground, and they find a body with like a key in its mouth, and they open the door with this key. They're arguing about who's going to touch the key because ew, gross, which again, it's not the scene you just have to watch because it's funny. There's just a lot of that. So basically any scene I tell you about, there's going to be a thing where you should just watch it for the dialogue. So anyway. Yeah, they open it up, and there they find Chelsea's body battered and beaten and probably violated. I have no idea, but luckily they didn't show any of that stuff. So Ahab grabs her and they carry her out. At this point, you don't know if she's alive or dead. Turns out she is alive, though, so that's fun. They exit a train tunnel, and you see her in the hospital hooked up to a machine or whatever, and she's gonna be okay, I guess. Then they go and they take their revenge or whatever. I can't remember if it's before or after that. I think it's after, but anyway, there's a scene where they find Fuckman on top of like an old dam, and I am like 96% that this was filmed in Pinawa Dam Provincial Park here in Manitoba. I don't know if that matters or not. Just based on the filming cities that they did, that would make sense because it's in between Winnipeg and Kenora, but well, sort of. But it looks like Pinawa Dam, so I'm assuming it is. It's like so Pinawa Dam, for those who don't know, is like a former dam site that's been like not used and abandoned, but all the like concrete structures are still there, and there are rapids going through it, and it's deteriorating enough to make like, you know, rapids and like rivers and stuff going through. It's really cool. I love Pinawa Dam, actually. It's one of my favorite places to go to outside of Winnipeg. It's like, I think 20-minute drive or something like that, maybe longer, I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter, it was filmed there, and that doesn't matter at all in the movie either, so I'm going to stop gushing about my home province and get on with it. So he chases him up on top of the dam there, and he shoots him in the leg, and Fuckman falls down, and he grabs a brick and starts smashing him in the head with it, and his face is getting like cut up, and the brick breaks, and then he just ends up like stomping on his head multiple times until it's like flat and bursts, because, you know, you got to go all out with the gore and all that. Then he lifts the body above his head, throws him off the side of the dam. You see him fall, and and then the other two guys are just looking at him like, "What the fuck?" And he looks at them and is like, "Did you guys see that? That was awesome." They're like, "Yeah, we saw." And he's like, "Let's go finish him off." And he goes running down. So anyway, that's one of my scenes that I remember for the first time is, let's go finish him off. He's like clearly dead. But anyway, there you go. So then they cut to, you know, the day has been saved and everything is hunky-dory, and she's in the hospital. She's alive, you know, Chelsea, that's great. And whatchamacallit, the Father John had gone back to the church that, oh, I didn't even fucking say, oops. So the blind priest was killed by Fuckman too, by the way. Before they did the whole chasing him down and finding him stuff, so I forgot to say it. Anyway, there's a scene shortly after that where he flips out in church, because like this is the guy that's like taught him everything he knows and everything. He like pulls out a gun in church and he's like swearing and storms out, and all of his parish or whatever it's called is like, oh my god. And then one guy's like, let's rip this place apart, and no one joins him, and he just sits down. Anyway, so obviously the church isn't happy with his outburst. I guess the new head priest, or maybe it's a cardinal or something, is talking to him and is saying like, listen, all your sins are forgiven based on, you know, what you dealt with and went through, but yeah, I'm going to be taking over the sermons now. I don't think it's a good idea for you to be doing that. So yeah, okay, I understand. And then they show Twink, and he's at the strip club, Teasers. Let's just call it Teasers, because that's, I think, where it is. and shows him in bed with 2 girls, and the girls are like, yeah, you're definitely gay. So obviously he tried to like see if he was gay or not. I don't know. Then he ends up in bed with, I think, the priest or something, and it's just like, okay, whatever, why not? Like, whatever. Anyway, and then we go to Ahab, who's in his, I guess it's a hotel room. He's kind of like drunk, or sort of, I think he's drunk. He must be, yeah, he's kind of messed up. Anyway, knock on the door. While he's in the building, it turns out that Father John had been researching what the blind priest had been researching before he died. And he found out that Fuckman isn't just a dude, it's a demon who essentially once every generation possesses a person of, adequate strength, I guess, and goes around killing and violating, and in some cases eating, because there's a scene in the very beginning where he's eating one of them too, fathers, until the body that he takes over is destroyed. So yeah, they killed the body, but apparently they pissed off this fuckman because it's not happy. So they call Ahab to try to warn him. It's Twink and Father John, by the way, are researching, and they call Ahab to warn him, and he's like, oh, hang on, there's someone at the door. No, Ahab, don't. And he opens the door, and it's Chelsea, and he's like, holy shit, you're awake. Thank God. And she kisses him, and he's like, he goes into it, and then he like stops her. He's like, no, hang on. You're my sister. We cannot do this. And she jumps him again, and he's like, oh, okay. And he's like trying to like say, don't, we're family, we're blood, but he's not resisting in any form at all, which is kind of gross. But this is one of those movies where there's just no boundaries, so everything's on the table. So let's throw incest in there. Why the hell not, right? So anyway, they sleep together. That's great. And they bust in, and as they're sleeping together, he like comes to, I guess. No pun intended, but I guess you could throw that in there too. And as he comes to, he sees that there is a group of cult members, and they're chanting about fuck menace or something like that, or whatever the demon's name is. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? And then Buddy and Buddy 2, aka Twink and Father John, bust in, guns a-blazing, gun down all but 2 of the cult members, and then there's a struggle, and they kill one of the cult members, and the other's like, oh my god, Mark. And then it turns out, as soon as you hear Mark, I didn't explain this in the beginning of the movie, but Stiegel, the officer that was interrogating Twink initially, his partner's name was Mark, so it's revealed, oh my god, Stiegel's in this cult. And he's like, yeah, my family's been doing this for generations, yada yada yada. And then Chelsea rises into the air and starts hovering. Her eyes are all black. I forgot to mention this too, sorry, but before she arrives to Ahab, she was possessed. So she's not just an incest-driven sister, she's like possessed. So she floats up, and her eyes are all black, and she talks in like this deep demonic voice, essentially saying like, you're you thought you won, but with your seed now I'm going to give birth to the most powerful fuckman there's ever been, or something like that. So I guess he's like prophesized to be the one to stop this demon or something like that. So his seed mixed with, if he can trick the person that can kill him into seeding him with another fuckman, he can make the strongest one of them all. So anyway, that's what he says, and then she like dissipates. And he's like, what the hell? Where the hell is she? And Father John says she's in hell. Like, he's been researching, he knows exactly what's gonna happen. He tried to warn him. And they sit down, and they're like, okay, so this is very important. What exactly happened when Chelsea showed up? What did you guys do? And he's like, nothing. We watched some TV, whatever. And like, okay, so if this was a completely, G-rated hangout with your possessed sister, then we're good. We got nothing to worry about. And he's like, okay, good. We may have fooled around a little bit. And of course they're like, oh, your sister, dude. Like, what the fuck? And he's like, I'm blackout drunk. I didn't even know what was happening. Anyway, it's a whole thing. So anyway, turns out that when she was dissipated, she was taken down to hell to basically be the birther of the next fuckman demon or whatever it is. So they're like, we have to go to hell and stop him, obviously, because let's throw hell into here. So they're like, okay, well, how do we do that? And they come to the conclusion, well, one of the surefire ways to go to hell is to take your own life. They're like, okay, that makes sense. And so Ahab's like, okay, here's the gun. What do we do, just one at a time or all at once? They're like, we have one gun. He's like, okay. So the priest's like, well, what if we mess up? And then Twink is like, well, we could do other ways too. We could like cut, we could take pills, we could do, and then you hear bang! Ahab just did it. So Ahab's dead. He appears in hell. There's all these weird vine things and like a weird screaming ghost lady that like runs through him and stuff, and he's looking around. He's like, guys. And they look and they see Ahab, this big hole in his head. They're like, oh shit. All right. And then they go back down to hell, and all of a sudden, poof, Twink is there. It's like, okay, cool. Where's Father John? He's like, I don't know. And then they show Father John, poof, into like, it's all bright and there are clouds. So he's in heaven. My candles are dying, whatever, it doesn't really matter. He's in heaven because he's a priest. I guess he was forgiven. He's talking to St. Peter, and he's like, okay, your soul belongs to us now. You're in heaven. You're good. You're at peace now. You can relax. We got you, bro. And he's like, okay, well, I kind of need to go back. And he's like, yeah, no, that isn't how this works. And so he grabs St. Peter in a headlock and puts a gun to his head and says, you got to take me to God. He'll send me back down, or I'll kill you. And he's like, okay. They go find God's office, which he has an office, so that's interesting. And they talk to God, and God's just like, oh, come on. You're not actually going to do it. Bang, St. Peter's is dead. So, okay. I assume it's St. Peter. I don't know. It was the angel at the gate, whatever it is, the welcoming angel. Maybe it wasn't St. Peter. God's like, all right, that's interesting. And then from behind him, the blind priest, I guess the blind priest went to heaven. He's a priest, it makes sense. Blind priest has a gun pulled on God, and like, you're not gonna, whatever, but he's trying. And the priest is like, run! And so Father John runs, and I guess figures out how to get back to Earth or hell or something. I don't know, whatever. He gets out, but you see the blind father, he's like aiming a gun completely not at God, and he's like, I'll do it. And he's like, can you at least aim the gun at me if you're gonna threaten me? He's like, who said that? It's just the dumbest shit. But amazing. Anyway, so poof, Father John is now in hell too, so that's fun. Or not yet, sorry. This is going on, then they show what's going on in hell while Father John is doing all this. So they're wandering through like a frozen wasteland, and then Twink disappears, and he goes into another area, and Twink sees his father in like fire, and his dad's like, yeah, I was never proud of you, and the best thing that ever happened to me was Fuckman killing me, so I didn't have to look at your face anymore. Real, like, you know, knife in the heart type stuff coming from his dad. So that's not cool. I don't know if that was his dad or not. It's probably a demon, like, just tormenting him because it's hell, right? Anyway, cut back to Ahab, who's now being pulled into the ground by a bunch of hands in, like, a grave, and Twink is there too, and he tries to get Twink, and he gets pulled under the ground, and all that jazz, and then suddenly it's just this big room, and they show when he gets to Fuckman's lair, I guess you'd call it, you see him, and he's this big, like, monstrosity, gelatinous demon thing sitting on a throne, and you see what's her name, Chelsea, in like a Princess Leia type outfit with a chain. It's playing on Star Wars a little bit, I think, and you'll see why when I get further into this. Anyway, he's like, okay, so I'm here, and he like shoots at him and does nothing, and clearly it's like a huge ass demon. Like, what's the little gun gonna do? That never works on supernatural things. People should know this by now, but anyway. Yeah, so that happens, and friggin' that's when Father John, who has descended from heaven, you see him go, ah, and he like hits the ground, and like a little bit of blood comes out, and he gets up, and he's all smiling, and his teeth are gone. Like, oh, he thinks he's saving the day, I guess, and he like sort of stands up and comes to me, and he's like, ah, and before he can do anything, fucking Fuckman just slices him in half, and his torso goes flying, and he's like, ah, what the fuck? Anyway, and he steps on, so yeah, they had killed Stiegel and Mark, and they're down there, and Fuckman ends up just stepping on them, just, you know, may as well get them out of the way permanently, right? So he does that. He's approaching Ahab or whatnot, and Chelsea snaps out of it for whatever reason. I guess his focus is on Ahab so much that she's unpossessed, and she like does the Leia chain around his neck to Jabba thing from Star Wars, so that's fun. Nice little shout out to that. I'm almost certain that's what they were going for. If they weren't, then they did it anyway, so whatever. So that happens, and then the head of the strip club that used to date Ahab comes and throws a thing of maple syrup at his head, and he like starts shrinking, and he shrinks down to like a baby size, and they're just like, oh, I guess that's the end of that. And then Chelsea just looks and runs up to it and like stomps on it and is jumping up and down on this like baby demon. Make it clear that it's a demon, so it's not like, yeah, anyway, all over. That's fun. Then she fades away, and Ahab turns like, where did she go? And they're like, oh, that's her soul coming back to Earth. He's like, okay, well, how do we do that? And they're like, I don't know. Twink's there too at this point too. They're like, I don't know. Maybe if we shoot ourselves again? And Ahab's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. So he does it. He puts the gun. Boom. He's like, ah! It clearly does not kill him, but it hurts him a lot. Now he has a hole through the back of his neck and head, and he's just like, what the hell? And then they pan out to show all three of their corpses just sitting there where they had initially done what they had to do to go to the afterlife. And they're just sitting there rotting, and Twink's cats are walking around, and there's flies, and roll the credits. So they're stuck in hell, I guess. Chelsea's saved, that's good. Fuckman's dead, that's good. But they're just, that's toast for them. And that's the movie. So, what did I think? It's a ride, man. Should you see it? Yes. I'm going to throw that out there right now. I don't even really have to go on explaining too much more that the story is ridiculous. The scenes are ridiculous. The dialogue is ridiculous. But in such a freaking entertaining way. Like, if they didn't nail the dialogue and, like, the forcefully kind of bad acting, it would have been probably a terrible movie. But they nailed the tone that they needed to nail for this. Yeah. I got nothing but good things to say about it, honestly. Again, it's one of those movies where I can't say it's like a phenomenal, like one of the best movies ever made, but it's exactly what it needed to be, and it did it very well, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I think anyone who doesn't mind gore and doesn't take offense to anything and enjoys comedic, violent horror type movies, you will enjoy this movie. So I strongly recommend checking it out. It's by is it Trauma or whatever did Toxic Avenger? They did this one too, I think. So it's that kind of a movie, if that helps explain any better. Yeah, what am I gonna give it? Mid-7s, I think. Let's do 7.666 because it's to deal with hell and all that kind of stuff. So we'll do that, and that feels about right. Because, like I said, it's a silly, ridiculous movie. You're not going to take it seriously at all throughout the whole movie, but the jokes are just they're friggin' great. I don't know. Go see it and find out for yourself exactly why I think that this is a must-watch for you. Despite not getting like a 9 or 8 or anything, it absolutely is a must-watch. More so even than some 9s and 8s, I would say, just because of how the sheer amount of fun you're going to have watching this. So I'm going to leave it at that. Happy Father's Day to all the dads who actually stuck around and watched the end of this. All the best to you and your family, and you should check this movie out after your little ones go to bed. You'll get a kick out of it for sure. All right, take her easy. Bye.